Welcome back, everyone. My name is Tori Edwards, and you are tuning into Through Our Lenses. I came across an article in 2008 written by Pew Research Center, which stated that 23% of children live with an unmarried parent. Today, we are discussing a topic that I am quite familiar with, and that is co-parenting. To give a backstory, I'm originally from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and when my parents divorced, my mother, sister, and I moved from Tuscaloosa to Houston, Texas. Although we made friends fairly easily and we enjoyed living in our new city, it was tough on us trying to manage the relationship with our father, who still resided in Tuscaloosa. Today, I brought along a friend who has done a phenomenal job managing this dynamic, as well as making sure that he is an active participant in his daughter's life. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Brandon Kimmons. All right, Brandon, so tell everybody about yourself and then we'll dive right in.
Hey, my name is Brandon. I'm from Sacramento, California. As you can see, I got on my throwback 49er jersey. We in the Super Bowl. Go Niners. I'm in love with my daughter, and so I'm grateful to be here sharing with you guys about my experience as a co-parent.
All right. Well, Brandon, let's start from the beginning. So tell us about the birth of your daughter, and we'll go from there.
That was an amazing day for me. The thing I can remember most about that day is being in the room when she was born, and I held her in my hands, and she squinted because of the light, and I told the doctor to turn the lights down because it was hurting my baby's eyes. And so at that moment I knew that I would cherish and protect her at all costs. But it's been an amazing thing to have her in my life, and she's changed my life completely.
So have you always wanted to have kids?
I did. Me and children have been a gift from God. I've always been good with kids. My parents, or my mom, my aunties, everybody, I was always good with the small kids. And I knew I would have kids, and I knew I wanted kids because I wanted to prove that I can be a better parent than my parents. But I guess we're going to go into that a little more in detail. I most definitely wanted children, a lot of children, so I love kids.
And so I'm going to piggyback on this because I met Brandon at church, and one thing about Brandon, when he's not serving, he always has somebody's child. Brandon is a person, if there's a child who's disruptive during service, he go and get their child, take them outside with them, have gummies, all kind of stuff. And I know when I first started, I was having my nephew a lot, and just seeing the way that he gravitated towards you, I was like, okay, this guy knows a little something about kids. But I want to go back to a statement that you stated earlier when you said, I wanted to do it better than my parents. What do you mean by that?
So first and foremost, the lack of relationship with my father. He was around, but not around. So I knew where he was. He was in another city. I was in California. He was in Nevada. And I reached out to him on a few occasions, and he did not come through. And the final straw that really had me despise my biological father was high school graduation. I was speaking at graduation, and he made this big to-do about him coming to graduation and about me saving tickets. Now, if you know anything about graduation, you only get a certain number of tickets, right? And if you had extra guests, you had to ask your friends if they would give you some of their tickets, right? So you had to get tickets from other families. And so I got 4 extra tickets, and big high school, did my speech. I seen my family after graduation. I seen all my friends' parents and everything, and I didn't see my father. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he couldn't find me because it's a big school. I didn't find out until the next day that he didn't show up when I went to my grandmother's house, where I left the tickets for him, and they were still there on the mantle. And that completely crushed me. And from that moment on, I said, I will not treat my child that way. And that began my transition of I want to be better than my parents. So all the pain and the hurt that I felt because of the lack of a relationship with him, I said I'm gonna treat my child the exact opposite, and that's how the relationship between me and my daughter kind of started.
Wow, 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 wow. So here you are. Here's finally your chance to do the right thing with Tiani. So you've got Tiani. You're in the emergency room. Or is it called the emergency room? What is it?
No, the delivery.
Delivery room. That's it. Excuse me. The delivery room. I hope it's not an emergency.
I hope not.
So here you are in the emergency room. You have Tiani. Talk about the dynamic of relationship with her mother. Were you guys married together? And how did you guys go from you having a certain vision from being a parent and her vision as well? And how did that vision come together?
So, as any relationship, well, let me say this, as most relationships start, there are not really clear lines of what this is. And so, but between us, there was no clear lines. We were, young, we were in college, undergrad. I had just joined a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
Oh, shout out to those deltas.
Wow, okay.
Okay.
Don't steal much.
No, back to you.
But there was I was young and immature, and I wasn't really interested in clearing up what this was, and so she happened to become pregnant, right? So there was no real basis for a relationship, and so what she thought it was and what I thought it was were two different things, and so that caused a rift between us, and so it was very rough in the beginning. But the best thing that happened to me was moving to Houston, and we can talk about that. But initially, for the first 3 years while I was in Nashville, it was rough between us because, again, she was expecting something, and I wasn't giving her what she expected, and so we clashed. She was upset about that. However, what I will say about my daughter's mother is she never used the baby to try to gain leverage or to do anything, right? And so we've always, put our daughter first. And so a lot of the reasons why the relationship with my daughter that I have is because her mother, right? Her mother had to be mature enough to say, hey, I didn't have my father in my life. I'm not going to do that to my child.
Yeah.
And so she was able to, bottle up her hurt, her pain, and what she expected to have from me in a relationship and allow me to develop a relationship with my daughter.
It's so crazy because, when I look even at friends who are trying to do this co-parenting thing or figure out what works best for them, it's exactly that. So one person has this idea of how the relationship should be. The other person was like, well, I'm not really sure where you and I stand. I want my focus to be on the child. And then the child starts to become leveraged. Okay, well, if you're not going, you got to take us both. Like we're a package deal. Right. And I think that that's what ruins the relationship with the child. And the fact that at such a young age, you guys were still willing to say, hey, although whatever we're trying to figure out we're still going to put Tiani first and not take away from Tiani because we're still trying to figure out what our relationship is. So I'm sure when she gets older, because I can say it's, being parents who are divorced, I think Tiani would be very appreciative to understand that you were there at every stage of her life and that you didn't miss any part of that. So
I will say this, right? So talk about that. When I moved to Houston, I was concerned that she would feel that way.
Really?
I left Nashville to move to Houston to pursue my doctorate. And I knew that was the right move. She was 3 years old, and I needed to make sure that I put myself in position to be able to provide for her when she really needed me in the latter years, middle school, high school. And so I left Nashville, but I always thought that what if she thought I left her? What if she felt like I abandoned her? And so that was always in the back of my mind, but I knew that I had to go because there was no other way for me to ensure that we would be secure financially. Because growing up poor, y'all want to make sure you got some money, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that that was the right move, and it most definitely was, because although again it was rough in the beginning, even though her mother did not prevent me from seeing her, we still clashed all the time. And it wasn't until we put space between us, I believe, that she got to see how truly valuable I was, right? Because you talking about a 24, 25-year-old who kept his daughter every weekend. I wasn't going to parties. I wasn't going anywhere because I had my daughter every weekend, right? My friends would call me, hey, we going out. I said, if it's not baby friendly, I can't go, right? Every time my daughter was sick, I would drop everything I was doing. She never had to take off work to middle of 2 o'clock in the morning. She won't go back to sleep. I'm on my way, right?
Yeah.
And so I performed, all those duties to take care of my daughter. And when that was removed, then she started to realize how valuable I was. And so now the pettiness can be put to the side. Her friends, who have kids, their fathers are not involved like I am. But all she could see is that, F him, he not a good dude. But her friends see me every weekend with the baby, and they say, "Oh, he's such a great father." She's like, "Man,
But I think it's people say, because I think maybe this was probably maybe Dwayne Wade said this, or maybe it was Kevin Hart, one of them. But they mentioned about their previous relationship, and they said, "I realized I wasn't a good husband, but I was damn sure gonna be a good father." And I think sometimes people don't know how to separate the two. I agree. Those are two separate platforms, right? And so although you may not have been the best significant other or the best partner for Tiani's mom, I think that you were like, okay, I'm going to focus on what I know I can be the best at. And that is taking care of my duties and my responsibilities of being a father and making sure that I'm there for that little girl. So here you guys are. You've now officially moved to Houston. When you had that conversation with her mother, how did that go?
I don't think it was a conversation.
Oh, really? Okay.
I told her I'm moving to Houston to go to school, right?
So did y'all follow up with, okay, how are we going to make this work? Did you have a plan written out? Look, I'm going to move to Houston, but I'm going to be back, every other month, or did you have anything set in place? Or you just kind of
when I moved to Houston, I was broke, so it wasn't no coming back and forth. Okay. Right? It was, I told her, I said, if I did say anything, it was, I need to do this while she's young, so when she really needs me, I'll be able to provide for her financially. I said, if I can do this, I'll be able to come back anytime I want to, right? Yeah. So that was the motivation or the drive in moving to a whole new city, because I knew that if I could secure this terminal degree, if you look up salaries for people with terminal degrees, $70,000, $80,000 starting off. So that if I can get that, then I'll be able to provide for us. So you have to, this is not about you, it's not about me, it's making sure she is well. And so if we did have a conversation, it was more so along the lines of that. But again, I don't think so. I just, I was like, I was out. And I think I just said I was out because she felt some kind of way. She maybe felt abandoned and left behind. But again, I knew that I had to do it. There was no other option.
All right, so you're in Houston now. How often did you travel back to Nashville to see Tiani?
So, man, I was sick when I left. Man, I was missing my baby girl. But I went back. So I moved to Houston in June of 2005. And then that following spring break in March, I drove back. Her mom would fly with her. And brought her to see me, so that was pretty cool of her mom. But when she turned 5, we stepped out on faith and decided to do the unaccompanied minor, and that's when your child flies on the airplane by themselves with the flight attendant, and the parent has to meet them at the gate, and we were scared, but her mom needed a break, and we didn't really have the resources to buy 2 plane tickets at that time. And so we prayed about it and we let her go, and everything worked out. It was the best thing that happened to us. But yeah, that was scary for both of us to allow her to travel by herself, to trust, the flight attendant or even the airline or whatever. But it worked out for us.
It's so crazy that you said that, because my sister and I, we did that as well for quite some time. We would spend the summers with our dad. So I know Mom was, I think they were doing the drive system, where we drive to Alabama and then you leave them there. But if you ever made that drive, it's like a 10-hour drive with kids. So we started to do the unaccompanied minor and utilize that system with Southwest. And I'm so thankful that it worked out, because it allowed us to see our dad more frequently. But when you want to make sure that your child sees the other parent, you have to kind of step out on faith there.
Yeah.
And pray about it and just cover them and make sure the other parent is there waiting at the gate. But, you figure out things that work for both parties.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Now, Tiani's older. She's a teenager now.
Yes, she is.
She's a teenager. Has she ever mentioned anything about not physically being in the same city with you?
It's a funny story about that, because my current job now in sales, I work with Granger, is nationwide. And, once I got into the company, there's a possibility or the opportunity to transfer to other cities. And so I asked her, I said, now again, she's been flying unaccompanied minor since she was 5 years old, coming to Houston, Texas every summer, every Christmas. And she developed a family here. And so this had to be a few years ago. So now she's 13, 14 years old. And I asked her, I said, what do you think about me moving back to Nashville? I said, I'm working at this company now, and I can transfer, and we can be together every day. And she says, Dad, no, don't do it.
Well, I know when Tiani's here, she stays moving around, so I know she loves Houston.
I said, you don't want to be together every day? I'm like, I thought we was. She was like, yeah, Dad, but we would never come to Houston. And that was confirmation for me, because I knew that moving back to Nashville wasn't what God wanted me to do. But I tell you what, I'll do anything for that girl. But it just reassured me that she was down here making good connections with good people. That God confirmed that this move was a good move, because He put people in our lives that I can trust them with her. I'm very particular about who I let my daughter go with. She don't spend the night at everybody's house. She don't go with everybody. She don't go to lunch with everybody. If I can't come, she ain't coming. If I'm not there, it's gonna be hard for you. It's a lot of, and we can talk about this a little later, but a lot of individuals, young ladies, ask me to, hey, let me take her to get her nails done, and we go get our nails done. I'd sit in the chair and we do that together. You don't have to do that. But that
you'll let me take her. Now, me and Tiani have gone together, but I think you trust me, right?
Yeah. So
look, he trusts me with his daughter. That's my boo.
Well, she's a little older now, and so she has discernment. And if there was anything off about her, my daughter would have picked up on it. So yeah, I do allow my daughter sometimes to go with this young lady here. She don't take her no more though. Where you at? On them $50 mayonnaise patties. Where you at?
Look, I help him out with, because Tiani's a teenager now, and so as a teenager, they're starting to experiment a little bit. And I think, Dad, we know that you love her, but he lays down the law. He's very strict. Hey, what you gonna wear? No, I don't think so. And so I have to step in a little bit on Tiani's behalf.
Listen. I'm not strict. I'm protective. You have to understand, we have predators
with the capital S.
Predators out here that are preying on young girls, okay? I have to make sure and she's not wearing anything suggestive that's going to draw unwanted attention.
Yeah.
See.
But I would never do that. But speaking of like clothing, right? So Tiani actually was going to a homecoming dance last year. And I thought this was I actually love this. And I was like, oh my gosh. But when she was trying on dresses, what did her mom do?
Well, see, again, so let me go back and say, so, you know, the first 3 years, her mother and I were both in Nashville, and we did clash. When I moved to Houston, there was some time adjusting. When I moved to Houston, you know, that's when I began my walk with Christ. And so my life began to change. Her mother didn't really buy into it at first. She was like, yeah, whatever. And so it took some time. You
just got to keep one out, you know.
It took some time. But then as, you know, I matured as a man and I stayed consistent in my behavior and in my walk, then there was nothing for her to doubt. And so she began to trust me. And so, you know, I wanted to start there. But now that my daughter is, you know, of age and she is developing, her mom calls me when there's anything that has to do with clothing. Well, let me reverse that. Let me rewind that. Excuse me. Her mother allows me to lead from Houston. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is all decisions go through me. All decisions with my daughter go through me. Her mother gives me that power. Okay. And so when it's time to get dresses for homecoming or proms or whatever, I got to see it. It can't be too tight. It can't be too short. I got to see it. I got to see it. So there was one homecoming and they were in the dressing room trying on dresses. They called me on FaceTime. And I would, no. Dad, but homecoming is in. I don't care. You knew for 3 months homecoming was coming. And you know how I am about dresses, so it's your fault, right? But her mother allows me to lead from Houston, and I'm so grateful for that because, you know, it just gives me the comfort to know that I can be here and still be present in Nashville. Let me tell you this. I don't know if you know this, but this is another way that I want to stay present with my daughter. Mm-hmm. Every month, she's a junior now. Second semester in high school, second semester junior high school. Every month since freshman year, I send a bouquet of flowers to school. And I send flowers to school because I want her to feel my presence all the time. And so every month, like clockwork, they go and I send flowers to her. So
look at you. I'm
here.
Okay, listen here, daddies. Y'all need to be taking notes. I mean, you're doing good. You're doing good. Did you Google this? You didn't know Google?
What? Who? Huh?
No Google on.
It don't matter where I got it from. I'm doing it, right?
You're right. I'll give you that. Right? You're doing good.
I'm
Okay.
Doing it,
You're doing good.
All right.
Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. That's awesome. So let me ask you this. Looking back on everything that's happened up until now, would you change anything, or do you feel like you made the right decision for what you were dealing with at that time?
I don't believe change would change anything, right? I am who I am today because of the things that I went through, and so regardless if I want to go back and change something that happened in the past, I would say I want to change me. And I'm completely comfortable with who I am today. I'm completely comfortable being transparent and sharing my scars and my stories with individuals because I know that has developed me into the man I am today. And although I'm still a work in progress, I'm very confident in the man I've become, and I'm only looking forward to looking to the man I'm going to become. So no, I wouldn't change anything. I'm taking the good with the bad and the ugly. Give it all to me. The good,
the bad, the ugly. Okay.
All of it.
So, in closing, Brandon, for somebody, because I think, especially in our community, you see a lot of children who are living in single-parent homes, right? Mm-hmm. And you see people who are still trying to figure out what works best for them when it comes to co-parenting. What advice, if you can kind of leave people with two things, what advice would you give someone who is trying to, who's in a rough patch with the mother or father of their child, but they're trying to figure it out, what advice would you give to those people?
I think we discussed it a little earlier. I would say, one, for the mothers, you have to separate the relationship between you and him and the relationship between him and the child. That's number one. Number two, for the men out there, I would say you have to be consistent. Yeah. Regardless of the ups and downs that she's taking you through, your child is only going to remember what you do for them. When you're there, when you're not there, they're not going to remember that their mom put sugar in your gas tank or slashed your tires or was burning your clothes.
Oh,
they're not going to remember any of that. All they're going to remember is that you were not there. So consistency is key. Consistency is key.
That is so true. That is so true. Wow, this is good stuff. Real good stuff. Well, I want to thank you again for being a part of the show, and for those of you out there who may be dealing with this or have a friend or family member or whoever, please share this message, and remember, the child comes first. And remember also that you can't take back moments, right? So your child's first walk, their first dance rehearsal or dance recital, you can't take back those moments. So make sure that you do everything to show your presence. Your presence means a whole lot more than just throwing out money to them. So thank you again for your sharing your story with us, and we will see you again.